Okay. All right. So, we are 4 months ahead. Hopefully we can continue that, but right now we're good. January, February, March, April, all in the newsletter. Those dates I don't think will change. I think will stay right on track. If you're able, so Buddy Break was also thrown in there. I know if you're not in this area, that's not an option, although you could look for a Buddy Break in your area. And you could call them and see if that's an option for you. Buddy Break is it's a respite for parents with children with disabilities. So normally it's at a church, not always, but in our area, it happens to be at several churches. And Bissell, leave it. Come. Bissell, come. Thank you. Down. Yep. Good boy. Thank you. Good job. I don't want him eating things he's not supposed to. So Buddy Break is just great. They have kids running around. There's usually music. They're playing with toys. They're bouncing balls. There's all kinds of things going on. So it is through Nathaniel's Hope. So you might be able to look up Nathaniel's Hope if you're not in this area. They are right now, Church in the Sun, where the one that we're attending is the only one that I know of that's actually doing in person. I know Northland was doing it in person. It just happens to be we're in with Church in the Sun. And it works out great. Lots of kids running around, all kinds of things. So it's really good for our dogs. We had a really nice turnout the last time. So if you're in the area and can join, great. If you're not, it's something you could look up in the area you're in and just see if that's an option also. January's training is the in-person training is in St. Augustine. We're really looking forward to that. It's, the weather's beautiful and I'm just looking at the notes while I'm talking to you guys. The link on the Facebook page should work. That's weird. That's the whole link as far as I know. So anyway, St. Augustine should be beautiful. It should be a beautiful day. Let's hope. And we will meet. There's a grassy area in front of the fort. And so we will meet there. And then we'll proceed, maybe break up in small groups, or we'll go as a big group. But the goal is to just get the dogs out. There's lots of shops there. If you've never been, great training opportunity. If you have been, then there's lots of things for us to do there. So we are working on that, just meeting and then figure out what we're going to do. So if you can get there to St. Augustine, that would be great. February's training is, gosh, Lord, it's a good thing you did this newsletter because where is February's training? Oh, is it Lake Mary City Hall? Laura has arranged to have the Chick-fil-A cow come out. Our dogs are always interested in seeing things in costume. So the Chick-fil-A is going to come out and we'll do a training there. It's a nice open area, and that's February. And March, I should know this, but I don't remember. Is it the Volusia Mall? Okay. Volusia Mall? Yeah, in person. Oh, and not Daytona 1. Okay, got it. And then April's is to be determined. I think we're trying to work that out. So tonight we're going to, is there anything I need to notice in the, required me to put a password? That's weird. Laura, where did you get that link from? From like an old email? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. And I hope the password I put in the page works. I guess we'll see if people start texting me saying they can't get in. I'll keep my Facebook page open for that. It should work. Oh, it says this one's asking for a password too. That's weird. Anyone have the password link? Isn't letting me in.
Yeah, this is weird because I used a link from, I'll show you what I used.
An old email.
Yeah. Isn't that it?
Well, that's where I got mine tonight, from an old email. And maybe I'll try AOL. Bear
So
with
the
us.
password looks like it's dogs 2020, but I don't know if you want to give that out. I can
yes.
see that from the
Right.
top left.
I think
Yeah.
you're right. It might be Dogs 2020. Never would have remembered that. Let's see.
Yeah, I'll try to get it fixed. So I'll go in and fix it, but that's weird.
Okay, so I just gave them that. Let's see if it works. Yeah. Okay. So things we are working on tonight. So one of the things that we always want our dogs to do is settle. It's an actual command. We want them to know it. And one of the ways you can work on it is by riling them up and then getting them to settle. So I did a quick video on it for Bissell. He's pretty good at it, so I felt like I was cheating. I also tried to send it to myself, and it doesn't look like, oh, you cannot minimize when you're recording. Oh, okay. Well, can I move you over? Yes. Yeah, it's not, for some reason, it said it went, but it didn't. So I'm going to try and show it to you from my phone. And you'll have to tell me if you can. You don't really need to hear what I'm saying. You just need to kind of watch what the dog is doing. Let's see. Okay. Wait. Okay. All right. So I'm going to try. Let's see. Can you see that? Are you able to see that? All right. I'll hold it as close as I can. All right. Hold on. Here we go. Watch me. Watch me. So, and you just can, because when you go to somewhere, you want to get them to settle pretty quickly. Now, like I said, I felt like I was kind of cheating with Bissell because he is pretty easy. But so your body posture would totally change. You'd be playing with them and messing with them and leaning down into them. And then as soon as you wanted them to settle, you're going to straighten up. Your body posture changes. You use the command settle. And as soon as they do, you want to be sure you're praising them. He's just really good. He knows it. And as soon as I told him to sit, he did. So, but if you notice that when you go out places, your dog is having issues settling, that's something really fun to practice, playing with them and doing it a couple of times. You can even use treats. Bissell didn't need to have treats, but you can definitely use them. And it will just help them remember that, okay, I've done a good thing. So you want to make sure that you treat them as soon as they've settled, as soon as they've done what you would consider settling. So standing still, lying down, not jumping around anymore. And some of our dogs get super excited. So the goal is to use a high-pitched voice. The goal is to really get them riled. And then once you stop and ask them to settle or tell them to settle, then give them a couple of seconds to think about it, but they should immediately stop the play mode and go into settle mode. So settle could just be standing by you calmly. Excuse me. It could also be down. I mean, I had Bissell go down just because that's where I want him, and that's his go-to position is at my feet. So if you're taking your dog out and he's have trouble settling in places, then I would work at this at home, work on it outside, and be sure, especially if your pup is young, that you have treats with you. And when we say young, 18 months and below. Our older dogs, 18 months and above, shouldn't really need treats to work, but sometimes they do. So I'm not going to make a general statement and say none of our dogs, because you know your dog well enough when they will work and work well with treats, or if they don't need a treat. So, and the puppies, definitely, most of our puppies, in order to work, I know Thanos, he is a big treat guy, and you know, he'll look at you like, where's my treat? Not working until I get it. So just keep that in mind. The age of your dog, the older they are, the less treats we want to give them. So just be aware of that. Anybody have any questions about Settle? I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward. And it is something that you want your dog to do. Like, you go, you know, wherever you go, into a movie theater, you go to church, you go somewhere where they're going to a restaurant, they're going to have to settle at your feet. You want to make sure that you've worked on it so that it's not a surprise, like, oh, I have to sit down and behave myself. Yes, you do.
Conan just heard you say that he shouldn't be getting treats, and he just wants to let you know he's upset about that.
I'm sure. Yes.
He's totally watching you on the screen.
By the way, Valerie, I already told you this, but your Razor Spotlight was so nice, and loved it, and also loved seeing you be able to fly with him and do such a great job.
Oh yeah, it was a little stressful, but it was good.
Well, and I think it's flying with a dog is stressful anyway, but he's huge. And so props to you for even just taking it on. I mean, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
I have to say, like, Allegiant, I know you guys have always said that Allegiant is pretty good with the dogs. They were amazing.
yes.
Like, couldn't have had a better cabin crew.
Yep.
All they wanted to do was make the dogs happy, because
Yep.
Fiji was there too. They sat like 2 rows up from us. And like, I feel like they sort of ignored the rest of the passengers and hung out with us because we had the cool dogs.
That's funny.
And luckily we had the same crew on the way home. So when Conan freaked out about takeoff, like, you know, they were cool because they saw how good he was on the way down there. So, you know, he slipped out of his collar, and like the flight attendant unbuckled herself and like bear hugged him to keep him from running down the aisle. Like, it was.
Okay. So I was going to have you explain what happened to him, because on the way he did really well.
Yeah, he literally, like, we had a row of 3 seats because a friend of mine went with me, and then we had 1 seat empty. So on the way there, he just went right in. I said, go in. She sat by the window. I sat by the aisle. He put his head on her feet, like pretty much stayed like that most of the flight. And then, you know, we had a long day in Key West. I think he was also a little exhausted from having, you know, being outside, walking around all day. You know, we sat around and took some breaks, but it was still very stimulating all day long. So on the way back, we got on the plane and he did the same thing. Like, he just laid right down. My friend stayed overnight in Key West with a friend of hers. So it was just me with him in that row. And he laid down and went to sleep. And I was like, whew, this is going to be awesome. He is passed out. He is done. And then takeoff there is like kind of crazy because the plane is pretty big for the short runway. So yeah, it's like very fast, and because they've like full blast the engines, it's like shaky. And he just like jumped up and like backed out of the seats. And so, you know, I like gave him a tug on his collar, like, no, but he wiggled his head and wiggled right out. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I grabbed his vest, and the flight attendant like saw me struggling because we were sitting in the very last row right by where they were, which was so glad I picked that seat. Uh-huh. So she jumped up and she had a hold of him. She's like, he's really shaking. And I was like, okay. So, you know, I told him to settle. Like, I just, you know, talked calmly. I got the collar back on him. I got him to come back in, but he took about 20 minutes or so before he would lay down again. He was just standing with his head on my lap and like 120 pounds of shaking. So I don't know, something about that takeoff set him off, but I think it was partially the fact that he was already so stimulated from the whole day, you know, of being stressed. And then he eventually did lie back down. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a lot. Poor guy. We got home and he literally slept the entire night, the entire next day. Like, he got up to eat and pee, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a lot. I probably wouldn't do the both flights in one day thing again. giving him a night to rest probably would have been a good idea.
Gotcha. Well, and I think that sitting in the back, the engines are very loud. And, you know, I mean, he could have just been like almost asleep. You know how you're almost asleep and then something goes, ah, and you're like, ah.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah, I don't know. It was something
You're
about the
so close.
takeoff, but it was okay in the end.
That's great. I mean, at least he did well on the way down, and you were able to settle him eventually, correct? Okay, so
I mean, I wouldn't say he was like completely settled and happy, but he did lie down and just kind of stayed laying down. As soon as the plane like landed and stopped, he like got up, like, let's get the heck out of here.
right, yeah.
So, but then he was fine. There was like no more shaking. He was wagging his tail. He was like happy to say goodbye to the flight attendants. So
Okay, so
it wasn't like a lasting trauma.
gotcha. So for anybody that doesn't know, Val has Conan, the 120-pound lab Dane, or Dane Lab, and she took him on a flight to Key West from Sanford, near Orlando. So just to give him the opportunity to fly, she got a really super cheap flight, flew from Sanford down to Key West, spent the day there, and flew back that evening. And just to give him the experience of flying. So I think that's pretty cool. And by the way,
I would tell anybody that thinks maybe about going to Key West, just to remember that there are loose chickens and roosters everywhere.
yeah,
So it's a lot of leave it.
yes. Oh yeah, oh for sure. Okay, that's good to know. That's true. I forgot about that.
And six-toed cats.
We stayed away from Hemingway on purpose. I knew that wasn't going to go well. So yeah, but there are roosters and chickens everywhere.
Okay, so just that's an option. I mean, if you're looking for something, Allegiant normally handles our dogs beautifully. They do a super job with the dogs on those flights, and you just have to submit a New Horizons letter. And I always submit the rabies just for the heck of it. And then you send it to an email, and the email sends you back confirmation. And normally, and I'm wondering, I know Jessica had a problem on the way back or on the way there. Do you know what?
Yeah, on the way there, like she said, we were texting back and forth before the trip, and I sent in my letter, and within like a couple of hours, they were like, Conan is approved, have a nice flight. And I was like, well, that was easy. She had all kinds of back and forth with them before even getting to the airport, like via email. But they finally did send her the approval. And on the way back, they did ask on the way there, I just had to stop by the ticket counter, and they looked it up and they were like, okay, you're good. And on the way back, they did ask me to provide all of the documentation again. And I was like, it's weird, you didn't ask me on the way down. So I guess it just depends who the person is.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. If it says, what did we say, Laura, OTHS or something on your your check-in, you're not supposed to have to provide it. But I mean, I didn't
actually look. I could look back at my boarding pass. I don't know like exactly what it said, but I know my reservation said my name and service animal.
Right. Yes. So I don't know. I always have it with me just in case. And my feeling is they're doing us a service because they could say no. And so I try to have that documentation with me. The letter from New Horizons. I don't always have an ID. Like I traveled to North Carolina to visit my daughter with Bissell. I did not have my ID, but I did have the letter. And I don't think either way they asked me for either of it. We got on with no problem. But Allegiant happens to be one of the airlines that is allowing us to fly with our in-training dogs, and they do a super job, and they're adding flights everywhere, and they're super cheap.
Yeah, I just got an email. They're doing in the spring again, and Nashville, Asheville, and Key West are in like the $30 range one way. So it's less than $100 round trip. And those are all relatively short flights. I think the flight attendant told me Asheville was like an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's also not a super long one if you're kind of nervous about being on there for a long time, which I was. That's why I went to Key West.
Yes, I think that's a great choice.
Yeah. And they weren't like, they didn't give me a hard time when they asked. They just asked for it, which was totally fine. as far as the documents.
Right. Okay. Any questions about that? Any questions about Settle? So you see, I mean, we use Settle in the airplane, lots of places. A lot of times the Settle is for restaurants and those types of places, but it's important that your dog can settle after a time of being stimulated. So that's something to work on. Let's see, what's next? Oh, so I was been listening and reading just about jumping because I know a lot of people are having issues with jumping. And so one of the suggestions that I kind of love, and I'm going to start doing, Bissell's, he gets excited. He's not so much a jumper, at least at my house, but I know when I go to Laura, if he's at Laura's, sometimes with the other dogs, he gets real excited. So one of the things that was suggested is drive-by sits. So your dog is just sitting nicely. You're in your living room, or you're maybe doing things in your home, and your dog is sitting so nicely. So like right now, Bissell's sitting beautifully. If I had a treat with me, I would walk over to him and just say, "Good job, buddy. Good sit." And just to reward them whenever you can catch them. So the goal is catching them. So say you're walking from your couch to your kitchen, or you're walking out of your bedroom, and the dog, and just when you can catch the dog sitting, and then to also try to practice them sitting near the front door. Now, my front door doesn't happen to be near my living room right now. Now, when I move into an RV, it will be. But right now it's not. So I would purposely have to push Bissell over kind of to the door. But the goal is to treat them in a drive-by sit. So just walking by them, and they're sitting even when you haven't told them to, and you treat them. So one would be to have a treat out, Sometimes I just have treats sitting on my counter so they can grab them quickly. And so that so the goal would be, because a lot of our dogs, the jumping comes when somebody comes in the door. Hi, Conan. So be just aware of that, like ways that you can reward your dog when they're doing something without you having told them to do it. Whether it's a sit, whether it's a down, any of those, just yes, good job, and giving them a treat for it. So those are, and I'm not real good at it, but after I heard this podcast on it, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start trying that. And I'm going to start trying it near the door, purposely near the door, because that's the place a lot of dogs have an issue. So if you can get them near the door and you're treating them with sit or down, and then maybe practice with somebody walking in your door, just coming in the door, and the dog is sitting near the door and you're there with treats. Because we don't want our dog jumping on people. And we've suggested putting the leash on them, holding the leash, making them sit, and all of those things work with time. It's not going to be something that works like that, like the next day. Oh, we did it. It's going to be over time. So the more you work on it. So a lot of that is, especially our younger dogs, if they're sitting near the door and they're being quiet, like sometimes it was Wasabi. Wasabi loved to sit near the front door. I don't know why, but he did. So if I still had him, I would start treating him. I would go over to him and treat him. Yes, good sit or good down, whichever he happened to be doing. So just be aware of that. They named it drive-by sits. I thought it was cute. Just really being aware when your dog is basically doing something that you haven't told them to do, but you definitely want to encourage that behavior. So kind of catch them in the act of sitting or catch them in the act of down, and treating or praising them during that time. Also, everybody should be working on stays, because there's going to be lots of times when our dogs have to stay in a certain position. And I know I have the same problem. Some of our dogs are connected to us at the hip. Like the minute we tell them down and then we put them in a stay position, we get a little bit of ways from them and they're like, oh, I need to come to you. So the goal with a stay is you want to get them to stay in that position. So you might, with the smaller dogs, the younger dogs, you may start out a short ways away from them, maybe a foot, 2 feet. And if they're staying, reward them while they're in the stay. Do not reward them when you've released them, because it becomes confusing. So be sure that as they're in the stay and they're there, that you're rewarding them. So I know at training, we've practiced where we walk around them. So something that might be good is giving them a treat as you're walking around them and they're kind of looking at you, pop a treat in their mouth. Good stay. I mean, we want them to realize that when they're in the position and they're not moving. And sometimes I have been guilty of, as they come out of that stay, rewarding them for it. We don't want to reward them for that. We want to reward them for planting their bottom on the ground or wherever you have them. So just keep that in mind when you're working on stay. And you want to work on the distance and the distractions on a regular basis. Just if it's 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, you know, if you can get in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes during the day, but in 5-minute increments, and really work on them. I know some of you have your dogs under the desk because you're working from home. So my suggestion would be get up and go get a drink, but tell your dog to stay and make them stay under your desk. You go get the drink, and when you come back and you have the treat in your hand, and give them a treat under the desk. Don't allow them to come with you. Try to work on them staying underneath your desk or wherever you happen to be working if the dog is there. Because I know that a few of our dogs right now are having a difficult time. They're so locked into their handler, which is beautiful because that's a good thing, but we also want them to be able to stay when they're told to stay. So continue working on that. That's always, I feel like all of these are, that's an important one, but they're all a work in progress. Be sure, we've talked about this, just setting your dog up for success, making sure that they're, that you're ending, if you're doing you're doing an actual training, that you are ending the training on a good note. Don't ever end it on a note that where the dog has done something that you like, oh, why'd you do that? I want to show you another video. Hold on. And this is, so I found a different way to hold my leash. And if this doesn't work for you, that's fine. I was working with leashes, my loose leash the other day, or my hands-free leash the other day. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if this would work. And so I tried it and it did. And then it worked into Leave It as well. We happened to be at the Tampa RV place and I was outside working with Thanos. So the first part of it is just a different way to hold your hands-free leash if you have one. If you see this leash and you're like, oh, I'd really like to have one, because you don't, New Horizons has them. And the second part is Leave It. Thanos and I are still working on Leave It. He gets very into something and he just has a difficult time leaving it. So I'm still having to use treats with him to coax him away, but let's see if we can do this. Okay. Good boy. You'll see I have the treat right down by his mouth. I'm not giving it to him, I'm just holding it. Nope, that's not it. Hold, and that is it, but it's way, hold on. Go back to the other side. Okay, here we go. This is Thanos, and I've been working a little bit differently with my hands-free leash. So normally this is the hands-free leash how I have it. It goes over your head and comes across your body like this. And I decided to try something different just to give me a little bit more support. I know some of you are dealing with issues with pulling. So I took the leash and I put it on my shoulder over here, a little bit more support in the back. I can still hold here, but I have a free hand, obviously, because it's called a hands-free leash. So this still works. It's not pulling on my shoulder. And there's several things that are kind of interesting to him in this area, so we're working on that. But it does give me a little bit more back support. And then, Thanos, sit. Yes, I'm going to take the leash off, and I'm going to put it on this side. And Thanos, side. Yes, side. And I'm going to pull him over here, and the same thing. So either side. I wouldn't necessarily do it if you have shoulder issues or you have a problem with your shoulder, but leave it. Let's go. Let's go. So this is why it's really good to take the dogs out to different places, because you deal with things that you might not deal with in your kitchen or your living room. So if he sees bread or something, leave it. Leave it. So you saw me and Thanos in a video a while ago. We're still working on leaving. He's getting better, but we still have some work to do. leave it. So I am loosening the leash a little. So he feels like, okay, he's Thanos. And I did have treats earlier, but I don't have them now. Thanos, watch me. Yes, good boy. Yes, good. Watch me. Let's go. Let's go. Yes. Thanos. Thanos, watch me. Good. Watch me. Yes. Good boy. No, leave it. Leave it. Yes. Good. Leave it. Yes, good boy. Switch positions. Get that help. Yes, good boy. Okay, let's go. Thanos. He is interested in that. So Tim went to the car for me and got a treat. I should have had one in my pocket because Thanos is still a puppy. And I actually really have a treat. Yes. And he knows it now. So now, let's go. Let's go. Good boy. So sit. We're going to put this back on. There I have it. Okay, ready? Okay, let's go. Good boy. Good boy. You'll see I have the treat right down by his mouth. I'm not giving it to him. I'm just holding it. Yes. Good boy. Good job. Good boy. So I just found that putting the leash behind me on my one shoulder seemed to be working better. Sometimes I was taking it behind my back a few months ago, and then that wasn't working as well. And so I just kind of was playing with the leash the other day, and I tried it, and I went, oh, I like this because it came behind my back and then down to him. So I mean, it's an option. You have to do what works for you. In regards to the leave it, the thing you don't want to do is drag them away. So I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I guess I just would have stood there until he finally gave up, because he does mule, as Laura calls it, where he just will look at you like, I'm not, where Bissell might stop, but as soon as you encourage him, come on, buddy, let's go. Yes, he will come, where Thanos will be like, he'll just look at you. So you really, at this point at 7 months, I got to have a treat. So I'm not as good about having treats in my pocket as Laura is, but recently I have been better about carrying my my treat bag with me. So, and that particular day I did have them, and then I ran out. So he needs them, but I did not pull him. I did not drag him. I let him look at the treat. There was breadcrumbs or something on the ground. And then I tried to, it's hard to see in the video, but as he was looking at it, I tried to release the chain a little bit. So he knew, okay, you're doing the right thing by one, not going after it, but I'm not going to give you enough leash to let you get it. And so, and then you saw, he knew, watch me, he looked at me, but he was still very interested. And the only thing that got his attention was giving him a treat. And then we walked away, and he was like, he didn't care, but I had the treat. So like I said, he's 7 months, going on 8 months, still needs to be treated with, and not with everything. A lot of things he does weird. Oh, there he is. We went to the mall with him the other day. He did up on the garbage can. He did quite a few things without any treats. But when he gets something in his sights and he wants it. So know your dog well enough to know when you have to have treats. That's the big thing. Make sure that you know, okay, I'm going out and I need to have them, because a lot of times we can get them to behave. And it's okay to stick the treat right in front of the dog's face and walk with them like that. You end up with a lot of slobber on your hand, but that's okay. One of the things I have been reading about and listening to is how we can ruin a recall. So we've talked about how important it is to have a recall with your dog. And if you're out in the yard playing with them, to, when you call them, to not have it be every single time. Okay, so they're out playing, they're having a great time, and you go, okay, come on, Sam. And they come to you and you immediately take them inside. So that's one way to ruin a recall, because then the dog knows, okay, every time you call me, nothing fun happens. So it is suggested that when you call them, one, call them to you and then go, good job, yes, and then release them again. That's one way. Another way is to call them with you and kind of do something in between. So say you're out playing with another dog and your dog really doesn't want to come in, but it's time to go. And you call them to you and they come. At that point, don't necessarily leave wherever you are. Take whatever they were playing with, a ball, a frisbee, a stick, whatever. Throw that a couple more times for them to give them a chance to, it's like a kid. You say, okay, 5 more minutes. Well, that's kind of what 5 more minutes is. Giving them an opportunity to get them to understand that you've called them in. Now you're going to play with them a few more minutes or give them a treat. Just do something kind of in the interim. It shouldn't just be calling them to you and then, okay, we're going and the fun is over, because then they start to equate with, oh, the fun is over every time mom, dad, whoever calls me. And so we don't, especially our dogs who have good recall. And I am not good at that. Unfortunately, I'm like, life is very busy and I'm like, okay, I'm calling you, let's go, we're in. So I have to be better about that too. This afternoon before Bissell and I came in, I was outside, I was mowing and he was out there with me. And then and I was kind of kicking the ball as I mowed. And then I knew it was going to be time to go in a few minutes. And so I played with him outside for a few minutes before we went in. But when I called him, he came right to me. I opened the door, he came right in the door. So just knowing that, think about how you would handle your kids. You wouldn't say, some of you might say, okay, it's time to go, let's go, we're out. But I know with my kids, I had to give, okay, guys, even now with my students, I'm like, okay, 5 minutes, this is your 5-minute warning. So a little bit of playtime or a special treat for your dog or something when you do call them. The other thing is, some of the things that we do to our dogs that they don't like is grooming. If you're using clippers or a Dremel, most of our dogs don't like that. And so you want to get them used to it. So, and this really is starting when they're puppies, but we can do it with older dogs as well, where you have the clippers or you have the Dremel and you kind of just make the noise and then you give them a treat, because you kind of want to associate with, oh, look, I have a Dremel and it makes a terrible noise, but look, I'm giving you a treat. So we want to associate good things with that thing. And sorry, I had just had a brain fit. Oh, or bathing them. Some of our dogs love to be bathed. Other dogs are like, oh no, they run the other way. So associating something good with that, because going to get them. So like when I have to bathe my dogs, depending on who the dog is, Quinn doesn't mind being bathed. And I've only bathed Bissell once and he wasn't quite sure about it. But in the past, some dogs love to, they'll come, they see the water and they're like, oh yes, it's bath time. And other dogs are like, oh no. So you got to figure out how to get them to come to you, or you go to them and instead of calling them to you, you just go to them, clip them on the leash and okay, let's go, it's bath time. So you don't always want the recall where you're calling them, Wrangler, come. You don't want the come to be negative. You want it to be associated with something positive. So think about that to yourself. Like when you call your dog, is it always for something positive? Like you give them a treat or you give them a hug or you tell them what a good dog they are. Like when is it? When they're outside, are you interrupting their play? And so the more we do, the more they associate a negative thing with you calling them to you, they're going to get to the point where they're like, oh no, I'm not coming. I'm going to go do something else. So just be mindful of that. We want them coming to us. We want it to be a positive experience. So if that positive is you playing, you throwing the Frisbee a few more times, you throwing the ball a few more times, you giving them a super good treat. Most of our dogs are treat motivated. Most of them. I would say, I would take a stab at 95% are treat motivated. So when you call them, give them a treat, give them a chance to go play for a few more minutes and then go, okay, come, let's go, and make it a happy time to go. If you're exiting or if you're calling them to take a bath or calling them to go inside, or who is it? Thanos does not like to go inside. When he's outside playing and then it's time to go in, he'll stand out by the bushes in my front walkway and he'll look at me and I'm like, buddy, come on, we got to go inside. And if he still stands there, then I will sometimes come back out. I'll play a few more minutes and then somehow we'll coax him either with a ball or some other method. And then I'll try to go inside and maybe continue the play So it didn't end outside, but I know a lot of times it's time. For me, it's time. And so I'm trying to be more mindful of those things. What is going to make my dog work better for me? And how do I get them to respond to the commands that I give them? And come is a big one. Anybody have any questions or comments, things you want to add to that, please feel free. Oh, don't scold them. So if your dog, so we have in front of my house, we have an area where we let the dogs play, and Quinn happens to be one who will run, and then she'll look at you when you call her. She'll look at you like, I'm not coming. And she'll just kind of go on her happy way. So sometimes I'm like, Quinn, come on, it's time to go. And the podcast I listened to recently said very clearly, you can't scold them once. And especially if they do come to you, like you're calling them and they finally do come, do not scold them. Like, you bad dog, you should have come. At that point, give them a treat, give them a party. Yes, because they did come. So make sure that we're rewarding that, because sometimes I forget and I'm like, I'm annoyed because you didn't come when I told you to, but she did come eventually. So it's something I have to keep in mind. I'm always learning new things, and every dog is different. So Bissell on a dime, he'll look at you. Yep, he's there. Quinn and Thanos at this point, and Quinn is 5. So, and some days she comes every time, and other days she's like, I need to listen to you. See you later. So it depends on the dog, and it depends on the day. I did like the one though where they talked about going to your dog. If you, instead of calling your dog to you for something, if you're pretty sure, especially that they're maybe not going to come, then just going to them and leashing them and having them, and then you're not ruining that recall. I've gone through my notes, I think. And Laura said, if not a treat, a ball. Yeah, I mean, whatever works. A lot of our dogs are very ball driven also. So use those tennis balls or whatever ball you're going to be brought his leash. That's funny. That's awesome. Yes, intermittent treats for the older dogs. Absolutely. Treat them one time, let a couple times go by, treat them again. So sometimes it's treats and sometimes it's praise. And that's kind of how Bissell is at 14 months. Sometimes it's praise and sometimes it's a treat. It just depends. And there was one other thing that Laura, you said that I forgot.
When we were at team training, we saw the importance of your dogs holding on to objects until they're told to give or to drop it, and to not lean down to them to get it, because lots of our clients they get dizzy if they lean over. They've got balance issues, and so leaning over is bad. So you don't want to go down. Now for Conan, he can just stand there flat-footed and he put it on top of your head, but you can't lean down and get it from them, because then the person that they get is going to have to lean down, and they need to be in their hands. You need to have your hands on the object before they let go. And that's something that I have not been good about. As soon as they bring it to me and let it go, cool, all right, let's go. And I need to focus more on hold, now give, so that the person whose hands may not be fully functional has the opportunity to get a grip on whatever it is that the dog has brought them before the dog lets go.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That was just a thing from team training, and I went, that's why that's important.
Yeah. So one of the things with Thanos and Bissell, when we go for a walk, I try to encourage them like we'll find a stick or we'll find something, and I let them hold it as long as possible around while we're walking, just to get them used to having things in their mouth. So and especially with our puppies, if you are somebody that's new to New Horizons and you have a dog that is not holding, that's something that you're going to want to work on, especially if your dog's a little older. Beyond 12 months, that's kind of considered older. A really good thing is just giving them an item, any item. It could be a dog toy. And usually we start with dog toys if our dogs are not good at holding, because that is something they will put in their mouth. So you start with that, and then you move to other items. And I have some glass cases. I have some old clickers or, remote controls, some things that they would, those are the types of things they would be picking up if they end up with somebody who needs them to pick up a lot of things off of the ground. So just getting them to just hold them in their mouth, putting it in their mouth, holding onto their snout, hold, and then yes, give. And so that's something that we practice. I think, didn't we do it at our last training?
And with the older dogs, the prison pups especially, they should be able to hold something and up. And okay, I will warn you, oh, by the way, Bissell I just told him to up at the grocery store the other day. He tried to jump on the moving conveyor. He'd have made it too if I hadn't snatched his leash back. That white dog can jump.
Oh, that's funny. Okay. All right. Well,
But holding something and upping is kind of like next level stuff that the prison dogs should be able to do. Our pups, one or the other.
right. Yep. Yeah. But your dog who's been in prison should be able to do both. True. Yep. So, and puppies, you just want to get them used to having different things, picking up different things, encouraging to pick up different things. Even if it's only for a second, you want lots of praise. They pick up your brand new glasses. I've had that happen. I just praise them, and then I hope for the best when I take it out of their mouth. We don't ever want to be disciplining them when they've picked up something, because we don't want to break that retrieve drive that these dogs they usually have.
And we're really struggling with handling paper appropriately with Thanos.
Yeah.
Particularly. He loves paper, and he'll get it. But if he brings it to you, it's torn into pieces, or he's in the process of tearing it into pieces, or when he goes to get it, he stands on it and tears it. So we're working on here, hold, and now bring it, give, and it's a work in progress.
Right. So I saw Katie ask, what if they are too loose? So Katie, I would they bring it to you, and then I would hold their nose gently and tell them hold, and just hold it there for a minute, and then take your hands away, and then get them to give it to you. So, and that's a work in progress. Like if your dog is bringing you something, but they're dropping it. Quinn used to do that with her ball when she came back to us. She'd have the ball, and before she even got to us, the ball would come flying out of her mouth. And we just started working. As she would come up, I would quickly take her nose and say, hold. And then I wouldn't say anything else. And she'd hold it, and I'd say, okay, give. And so it got to the point now she can actually hold the ball in her mouth, but it did take a while. Because sometimes their first thing is getting it. And then when they get it to you, they want to get it to you. And they don't. So we have to teach them to hold it in their mouth for however long. And the more things that we expose them to holding, the easier it is for them. So like I said, I have an old phone, I have a glasses case, I have a remote control, I have, but start with toys. If you notice your dog's not good at picking things up, start with toys, because they will pick toys up, and make a big deal of that, make a big deal of having them hold the toy in their mouth and bring it to you. And like Laura said, so I'm bad at bending down. My first thing is to go down to get it, but the goal would be to stand and have them bring it to you with their head up, and you take it from them. Does that make sense? Because a lot of our recipients are in a wheelchair and they can't bend down to get something. The dog has to either come up to them or somehow either get on their wheelchair, or the dog has to lean up to them. So just teaching them to hold it in their mouth for a period of time. and not letting go of it right away. That's the hardest part. Keys is another good one. If you have some old keys or your key, if you're okay with them holding your, like I have a key fob that I don't care if they take. So that's an idea. What are some other things that our dogs hold in their mouth? Anything?
They use a credit card to pay at the grocery store. So I always teach mine to put a gift card in their mouth or credit card and then to go up and then either to hand it to someone or they hand it to me and then I put it in the machine.
Yes, yes. With credit cards, I would start with one that is old. I have a couple bites in a card, I think, because of a dog, but
Yeah, aren't those things that they mail you? Oh, here's your card,
yes.
and you're not going to use it. So I pull those off, man, and they go in the dog stack.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
How long would you expect them to be able to hold something? Because Clyde does a good job. One time I tried to get him to carry my soft wallet across the parking lot and he made it about halfway
Great.
and then he was done. So,
That's great.
okay.
So the goal is for him to, well, so some of our dogs might be expected to carry like a light bag out of the store to a car, possibly.
Right.
And other dogs would just need to get something from point A to point B without dropping it.
So just work on him handing it to me and not dropping it and we're good. Okay.
Absolutely.
He's really good at putting dog toys up on the register at the pet store though.
Good. Well, I guess it's good.
I mean, it's good if I'm buying it.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah. And that's the other thing to try is when you're at the grocery store and if you don't have, 10 people behind you, I always try to give the dogs, even if they don't have anything in their mouth, I do try to get them to go ahead and get up on, sometimes I'll go to the end where there isn't anybody. It's just me and there's nobody in line and it's an empty register. I'll go to that one and I'll practice. And sometimes I'll do it right if I'm in line and there's nobody behind me. So
Yeah. Usually we practice at the pet store or the feed store because it's a dog place anyway. So I feel like there's way less pressure for him to mess up because it's at the grocery store.
yeah, absolutely.
But the register is the same, so he doesn't know the difference.
Yeah. So that's funny, Laura. I'll have to try that with Bissell. We've been to the grocery store several times, but I don't think I've had him up. So, but he did great on getting up on the scale there.
Yes. He was just he's so good that he had a new toy. He had his lamb and I had the toy and I said up and he was going for it, man. Conveyor belt, here I come.
Yeah. Margot says at grocery store, other stores, should we ask person at cashier if we can practice? You don't have to ask. I mean, you might want to let the person know that you have a service dog in training, but because they might be a little surprised. But usually I know when I've gone to Publix, the Publix here in Lake Mary, they've seen Laura and I so many times that they know that we have dogs. So, I mean, it's up to you. You can let the cashier know, hey, I have a service dog in training and I'm going to have him up because that's one of the things he has to do. So, I mean, certainly it would be a courtesy, I guess.
And then they launch and you just go, well, that's why he's in training. Yeah.
Yeah. So certainly, and that's with anything. If you're somewhere and you want to give somebody a heads up, certainly can't hurt. I'm sure that they would appreciate it. And sometimes I guess I just do it so often I don't think about asking, but it was Laura, you said something that reminded me of something else and now I can't remember what it was. I don't know. Well, any comments or questions, things. So before I do that, if you do something with your dog, you're practicing a skill and you're like, oh, they're doing this so well, please videotape it. You don't have to videotape you. In fact, my husband was videotaping tonight and he videotaped and I said, don't get me, get the dog. So take a video of it and either send it to me or send it to Laura, share it with us, text it to me. So we can use it because it's really nice when we have examples to look at. So, or if you're doing something, you're not sure you're doing it right. Take that.
Or you've done everything you know to do and it's not working, go ahead, video it. It happens to me all the time. I'm going to do a video, and I set the camera up, or I get Lamar to do it, and the dog is an idiot. I'm like, I can't video this. And this is like the how not to do it.
Yes.
Well, actually, sometimes those are as useful as the, oh, look, Bissell was perfect. What do I do if he's not? Well, when I've got Thanos, that's what do I do when he's not? So
Yes. So those videos are just, I find them to be super helpful when I see somebody else, because sometimes that gives me an idea, oh, I should do this. So just, I know not everybody loves videotaping themselves. You don't even necessarily need to talk except for the command, maybe, so just, and I think once we do it a few times, then it's not so bad, but they're really helpful. So when you do them, consider other raisers that you're helping, either by the way it's not supposed to be done, or your dog is really well. So like, I love those pictures of Conan, because one, I really didn't know if he was going to fit in the seat, but those pictures showed he did a beautiful job. I mean, this dog is huge, and he did well, and that goes to his raiser. Like, I worked with him. I mean, that is kudos to you. So and kudos to you for being brave enough to.
I give kudos to whoever had him in prison, because I feel like they did such a great job with him.
Yes.
remember, those prison the inmates, write your letter, put a picture, because they don't have pictures of the dogs unless we provide them for them. And if they've done a good job, write a note and we'll get it to them. You can either get it to Ellen or get it to me, and I'll get it forwarded. We're not setting up pen pals. See what I did there? But we are going through New Horizons office and through the liaisons, and we don't know who the inmate is, which is fine, but we do want to give them credit when they've done a really good job with a dog. And they want to know that their dogs are doing okay.
Yep.
And there's no way for them to find that out.
Yes. So any comments or questions that you have just about anything you've heard tonight? I think we've answered all the stuff that's in the chat.
For anybody who didn't see it on the Facebook page, I'll share the little picture of Conan and the flight attendants. That's how much they loved him. They were like, yeah, let's get a picture.
That's adorable.
I purposely didn't get in that picture.
Very
I was
cool.
looking rough after that day.
Yeah, I very much appreciate Allegiant, because they've always been super with our dogs. So anytime I've flown with them. So just a reminder, when you take your dog out, to be sure that they're groomed well, just, that they don't smell like a smelly dog, and that they're clean and they don't have little greenies. This is the time of year with all those little greenies all over. Bissell gets them all over his snout. So just, be mindful of that when you're taking them out, that they look good and that they're behaving. And it's okay if your dog is not behaving to leave. Oh, who is that? Who is this dog? This Clyde.
Clyde.
So Joy, this is a perfect time for you to
hi, sorry,
go up
said
and
his name.
give him a treat and tell him what a good boy. Like,
Yes.
that's
He
kind
just
of.
got one a minute ago, so
Oh, he did. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
he's beautiful.
there you go.
He's had enough of that. Okay. And also any issues with your dog, medical wise, please call the New Horizons office. And if you don't get anybody, somebody will get back to you. And if a few hours go by and you're like, it's something you're really concerned about, go ahead and call again. They are, they're in the middle of changes. And so just be aware of that. And I did see today where some of our raisers were going to go get food. So if you live in the area and are looking to get food, I think they have to wait, that the next delivery is going to be next Wednesday. So there isn't any till next Wednesday.
And there is there's the regular office phone number in the newsletter. It is right. And I was also told to put Janet's number in that newsletter. So she said, if you don't get a call back to call her directly. And that second number on that newsletter is her cell phone.
Okay.
So, and she lives and dies by her cell phone. So,
And if you haven't seen the newsletter yet, it should have been emailed out. If you didn't get one, let Ellen know, because Laura did it and did a super job with it.
except for
thank
the
you,
link.
Laura.
Sorry,
Thank
and
you.
we'll try to get the link weirdness fixed before the next one.
Well, so this was the thing. When we started, I texted my son-in-law about it because it's his link, and he got in through that link without a password, and I got in through that link. So he wasn't sure why it needed a password. So we'll figure it out.
So in the end, the link in the newsletter is actually how I got in, but the link that someone put on the Facebook page tonight didn't work.
Okay, that was me. Oh, I don't know where
Okay.
that came from.
Like it would just say directing, but it would ask for a password. But when I went back in and dug through and found the newsletter, then it worked. So I don't know if it's just because it was fixed or because that was the right link, but.
Okay, well, good. So you did get it through the newsletter. So Laura, you must be here. Okay.
I got it through the Facebook post. That one worked for me.
So you know what I think it is? I think it's whether you have Zoom loaded on your device or not. That's what I think part of it is. I'll have to double check that, but that's what I think it is.
Okay. Yeah, I have Zoom on my phone and that's what I was using. So
And
the newsletter one worked.
okay. Okay, cool. All right. Any other questions or comments? Or things you want to share? Great things your dogs have done lately.
Well, I was really happy. My daughter takes Clyde sometimes. She's 18. And she's probably better with training dogs than I am. And so sometimes she'll take him out too. And she actually took him to youth group at church last night. And usually he just goes to boring ladies Bible study with me. But he went to youth group and I told her, I was like, well, be careful because I have no idea what he's going to think of them, like playing kickball and games. And he's used to noisy. I have 4 kids, but not balls inside everywhere. And she said he didn't even care.
Awesome.
So he just sat there or laid there and did great. So
Good. Wow. And he's 14 months old?
no, he will be 2 in February. So he's older.
2. Okay. Okay. Good. That's all. Yeah. And that's kind of when we go to the buddy break. That's what that buddy break is all about. Just, all that stimuli around and the dogs just being like, no big deal. And sometimes like I used to play, Hess and I have this ball thing that we like to play. So sometimes I did let them play, but they had to know when it was time to stop. So.
Yeah, he plays ball at home and with the other dogs in the house and, in the backyard, and that's all fine. So that's why I wasn't sure. But no, she said that he didn't even care. It wasn't even an issue. So.
Awesome.
And
Terrific.
he's almost mastered not getting excited about people he knows from home when we're out. So that's his hardest thing.
Yeah.
So kids who might come over to our house, when they come in the house, they're petting him or something, and that's fine. But if he sees them at church, he can't.
Yeah.
So that's been the hardest, but he's done good. And the kids have done really well.
Good.
They're mostly older kids, but they're done really well. And so he's pretty much got it now.
Good. Awesome.
His tail will flap once or twice, and then he'll remember he has to be calm. So.
Right. Yeah. That's funny. Okay. Anybody else? All right. You guys are awesome. So just for January, if you haven't put it on your calendar yet, the January newsletter says that there is another Zoom on the 18th. That's a Q&A. So questions and answers. So maybe like if you know somebody who is interested in being a raiser, that might be one that you would invite them to, so they can kind of hear, what goes on a Q&A. Somebody who's, and that would be a great thing to just invite somebody to come to a Zoom meeting so they can just see kind of what we're about. And then the in-person training is at St. Augustine, 10 a.m. Meeting in front of the Castillo de San Marco. And there, as far as we know, there is public parking across from the fort. So that's what we hope is still.
Behind the Huguenot Cemetery, there is a public parking area. So if it's really bright, sunshiny, and hot, we may hang out in the cemetery where it's shady. But if it's like it has been and cooler, we'll use that open space together.
Yeah, and I think we'll try to maybe do lunch together after, so I think there's lots of places to do that. I think we're gonna try to look in to see, I know they have like a shuttle or something that goes around the city. I don't know that, I know January, February is really busy for them, so I don't know if they'd give us a discount on it, but anyway, we'll be near water. There's just, there's lots of things going on in St. Augustine, so it should be good. And I think for those of you that are
Oh,
down.
and the horse-drawn carriages.
Oh, yeah, horse-drawn carriages, yeah. So I think those of you that are down south farther, I think we're gonna try to do another training down there soon. So that may be April. We'll just have to wait and see. So anyway, thank you, everybody. Laura, thank you again for the newsletter. Valerie, thank you for being our first spotlight raiser. That was awesome. So Laura will be looking for other raisers to spotlight. And so if you're interested in doing that and just saying how you got started and why you stay in it, I'm sure she'd be happy to have that information and a picture of you and your dog. And I think that's all. So thank you guys. We appreciate you. We appreciate everything you're doing. We could not raise dogs and do this. Laura and I just had the honor and privilege of participating in team training, which is the end for our dogs. It's where they get placed. And every time I see it or go through it or get to participate in it, I am just amazed at it's awesome to watch the dog with the person and how they just become a team. So it's pretty incredible. So just know that you're doing great things with these guys and that they have a mission in life. So keep on keeping on. And that's all. Happy January, Happy New Year, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you, guys.